Everybody, welcome to High Spirits. It's episode 63. We're live after Benzinga. We're live after Benzinga. And we're here with a few of our friends. You got Ben Larson and AnnaRae, of course. Old friend, Heather Molloy. We have two new friends to the show, Cameron and Michael, and we'll get through introductions in just a bit. Yeah, it's good to see you all. Thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Thanks for joining.
Yeah. Early Thursday morning after the whirlwind that is Benzinga.
Benzinga brings together lots of executives from around the industry, so we thought it would be fun to do our first CEO roundtable and to bring CEOs who hold different roles and different perspectives in all different parts of the industry, so that we can think about what is ahead and start to get some predictions. But also one of the things we talk about a lot on this show is how businesses need to be flexing internally in order to be resilient and plan for the future so they can execute on their visions and goals. And so we're excited to talk about that and kind of get your guys' reflections on everything that you took in over the last few days and how it might be going into the next few months as you roll things out in your own respective spaces. So let's get started with some intros. If you would each go around and do a quick little introduction, that would be great. Cameron, why don't you?
Yeah, I'll start.
Yeah.
So I'm Cameron Clarke. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Sunderstorm. Sunderstorm owns the Kana brand of edibles, although we just bought a vape company in Nevada called Bounty, which now we've launched Kana vapes in Illinois, and both our vapes and gummies are doing really well in Illinois, so we're excited about that. We operate in multiple states in the U.S., and recently we've opened up in Thailand, so we are now a global brand, so we're excited about that, and glad to be here as one of the largest edible brands in the country. So
Awesome.
Excellent.
Yeah, welcome.
Well, I'm Michael Murphy. Nice to be here. Thanks for the invite. Co-founder and CEO of Prelude, and at Prelude, what we built is an AI-powered solution that helps dispensaries reduce excess inventory and miss sales with the ultimate goal of improving cash flow and profitability. So we have partners in a few states. Have been primarily focused on retail, but are starting now also to partner more on the brand side as well, which is cool.
AI. All right.
I know, that's the buzzword, right?
Yeah.
That's what you have to say in order to get checks.
You're the one
from
taking
you.
all the investment dollars.
Yeah.
Check our deck from 3 years ago. We were before the hype came around.
Did you call it machine learning then?
You know, depends. Buzzword we're using by the end of the session.
That's good.
I'm Heather Molloy. I'm the CEO of a fund called Speedwell. We've been investing in the equity space for the last, year and a half or so. Prior to that, I ran mergers and acquisitions at TerraSend, and I've been in the space for about 10 years.
Awesome. And Heather is a repeat guest on the show. I think
So
our first one.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think you had somebody else come back.
No, I think
you're
right.
literally our first repeat guest. Yeah. We are planning on having Hirsch come after the election and do an election breakdown with us. So he'll be a repeat guest too. But yeah, thank you for being our first repeat.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And you guys know us. I'm AnnaRae. I'm CEO of Meyer. It's a strategic advisory firm, and we help people all across the industry doing different things. And
I think that might be the first time we said that on the show.
Possibly. We don't talk about
Do
ourselves.
people even know what we do?
I'm not sure.
I'm Ben Larson, CEO of Vertosa, and we do active ingredients for products like Happy. Which
I saw Lisa.
yeah, she was in the gym this morning.
You guys are just making me feel bad all around.
Gotta get at it. Be straight. But,
So
sorry, have it.
what are some takeaways? Like, what did you guys think of the last few days? Was it what you thought?
I'll start.
Yeah.
It was definitely a hurricane. But you know what? My first Benzinga conference, actually, which is kind of odd, was 1 year ago here in Chicago. And I was excited about that conference, but this conference actually blew the doors down from last year. I thought there were great attendees. I had terrific meetings. It was just nonstop, valuable insights and potential partnerships for us. So it was invaluable. It was fantastic. Yeah. I mean, for us, it's valuable because we need a lot of different things, right? So we're always looking for different types of technology. We're always looking for different potential partners, regional partners in various markets. And then also now that we're global, we're looking for a lot of international opportunities. And there certainly is an international component here at Benzinga. So
Were there people that
Definitely.
were setting stuff up in other countries? So
absolutely.
where did you see? What kind of countries?
I met people that are doing stuff in Africa. I met people that are doing stuff in Europe.
A lot of Germans.
A lot of Germans. Yeah. So,
What's going on in Africa?
you know what? Yeah, there is.
Dollars.
I had no idea. I mean, it never ceases to amaze me about when some new country pops up and you're hearing that the cannabis is being sold in that country. But apparently, there's a few countries in Africa that are actually importing cannabis products
From Canada or
from
Europe?
Canada. Apparently, yes. Yeah,
Wow.
very surprising. So glad to hear it. For me and for all of us, I think the more the global market develops, the better it is for all of us. And to be honest, the U.S. is challenging and difficult, and we have to operate separately in different states, right? Because it's federally illegal. But for the globe, right, for the world, you can manufacture in one place, ship all over the world. So,
Yeah.
as global markets develop, I think there is opportunity for all of us.
And just out of curiosity, jump in. You mentioned that you're starting in Thailand or have started in Thailand.
Yeah.
Why Thailand compared to some other?
So we actually operated in Canada a few years ago,
Okay.
and that was our first foray into kind of a global market. But my background is international trade. I've done years and years of international trade in a previous life. So I had worked in Thailand and understood Asia and Thailand. And when someone came to me, and one of our partners said, "Oh, I got an opportunity in Thailand," they just descheduled. I said, "I'll go over and take a look at it." In 5 minutes, I looked at the market and said, "I'm in. How do we get started?" For a variety of reasons. Number one, it's the first place in Asia. And secondly, when I was there, they just basically blew the doors down. I mean, cannabis was being sold everywhere. My partners, I found some partners that were very well connected with the government. One of the first 5 medical license holders there, so they were stable. And our model when we open up in different markets is always to find a partnership, either a joint venture type operation or fall under someone else's license. So we look for really good partners. And to be honest, I always say the single most difficult thing in business is finding trustworthy partners.
Mhm.
Especially in this business.
So
in this
true.
business for sure, right? So I've definitely been screwed in the past plenty. So I look for good partners, and when I find a good partner, I'm all in. And there's just a lot of excitement, and the margins are great in Thailand. We have a 90% gross margin, I think, in Thailand. So
Wow.
that's pretty amazing. I don't know how long that will last, but it's just and it gives us. And Thailand is one of the 5 tigers. So they have a big nutraceutical industry. They've been exporting all over the world for decades. So for us, it's just a great opportunity to be able to plant a flag and be able to sell cost-effective products all over the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
Michael, I know from talking with you that partnerships on your mind a lot right now too.
Yeah.
How are you approaching partnership?
No, for sure. I think what struck me the most about this Benzinga is the amount of conversations that I've had with other tech companies that either are tangential to what we're doing or have expressed interest in doing what we're doing at some point in the future. But a lot of these companies,
Happy Cabbage, like all these.
but yeah, I mean, there's basically just a general vibe I get, at least on the tech side of all right, well, let's pick our lane, let's specialize, like rather than try to build everything internally. Like, there are 100 Sequoia-backed tech companies in the cannabis industry. So people are actually looking to pick their own lane and then partner, with other companies that could potentially complement that offering, which frankly has been a very different vibe than kind of the experience that I've had in, the 3 years now being in the industry. But, welcome to it, because, we foundationally believe, right, at the end of the day, specialization of task is how we can all, go further faster. And that was one of my big takeaways from the conference. I think the other, and I don't mean to bring up, the other buzzword, I was shocked by the presence of hemp at Benzinga or any show that I've been to compared to, the past or, the 3 years in the cannabis industry. I won't take us down that rabbit hole yet, but that was just another big takeaway of, it seems a lot more people who have not been paying attention or have been deliberately not paying attention are now starting to think about, is this an opportunity that's right for my business, which I thought was particularly notable compared to past events.
Yeah.
But I think that also, for when you think about like what's happening or what we think the forecast is going to be, so it's like scheduling conversation will happen in December, the hearings, and the scheduling language that we all read, I think, was like this is what's going to happen on the schedule, except as it relates to hemp as defined in the Farm Bill. That was like the first pass of, I think, the language I saw. And so when I looked at the changes that were kind of being proposed in the Miller Amendment around hemp and then calling some of it industrial and some of it non-industrial, I was wondering how that would integrate into the schedule. And so I think the hemp opportunity is super interesting for investors that have the ability to deploy capital into that lane to see if it works. But as an investor, it's very hard to navigate. So like I was having some conversations with some investors that are like, you just have to go, you just have to run at it. And I don't think that that's my capital right now.
Is that Ian?
Yeah. Yeah.
Love you, Ian.
And so what I said is, well, I hope I get a second bite of the apple, because if it works, the amount of working capital that these beverage companies are going to need to take the national distribution orders is going to dwarf whatever they're looking to raise right now. And so hopefully there's a second bite of the apple when there's like greater regulatory certainty. But it's hard to sit back and watch what's going on. But my last 2 deals have been more supply chain related on the hemp side, because I'm thinking about the cannabinoid market becoming a global market and not necessarily only a flower market. And I'm not really just thinking about, I guess, the kind of traditional adult use rec market. I'm thinking longer term about how will cannabinoids be ingredients, how will essential oils be ingredients, and how do they integrate into global supply chains. And that's kind of the only way I can think about it right now.
That is exactly the way to look at it.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting, right? I mean, we're all very passionate about cannabis. We've been driving this culture, this cannabis culture for years, and we're thrilled to be able to deliver it into these populations that need it. But to be honest, cannabis is an ingredient, right? It's a powerful plant medicine that can be incorporated into all kinds of products. But it's not only about cannabis, right? It can be used as an ingredient. So I totally agree with you on that perception.
Yeah. And while I did see a much larger hemp presence at this event than I have.
When we say next, are we saying like beyond hemp beverage?
Well, so that's what I was going to say. Is I was going to say that I think that I will say that there's a difference within the hemp space that is starting to become more prevalent as it's becoming more clear that there is going to be some type of regulatory future for hemp-derived cannabinoids. And there's starting to be the separation within people that make hemp-derived products, that I see the inhalable products and the non-inhalable products that include beverages and edibles. And in those beverages and edibles, more the low-dose folks, those are the people that are showing up to integrate into the more professional environment and to become a part of the policy discussion. I did not see THCA pre-roll DTC companies at this conference looking to scale.
Right.
I think those are much more short-term folks that are looking to stack cash in the interim while there's a gray area in the law, and they're probably not targeting people like you, Heather, to talk about a 5-year plan. There's not a lot of 5-year plans.
They're already making enough money in that.
Yeah. It's like, let's stack it now and then realize that there's not a long tail.
I was actually talking about this with the flower hire guys. They were saying that they don't even have staffing plans. They're just like scaling up and trying to just kind of capture as much as possible right now, and not thinking about how many heads they're going to need to hire at the end of 2025.
Yeah. Well, we like to think about the future. So.
You know what? I think for a lot of us, it's easy to kind of get stuck in the weeds, right? To be very, very granular about how we see all these markets developing. But what I tell people is that you've got 3 markets, right? You got the hemp market, you got the illicit market, and you got the licensed market. To me, the United States is a $100 billion market. It's a massive market. And when you step up to the 65,000 foot level, what you see is, this market that there's all kinds of products being supplied into various corners of this market. But as you dive in, you see a lot of frothiness, right? There's a lot of regulation changes. There's a lot of structural changes, different products popping in and out, different places. But what's really happening is the legalization of cannabis.
Yeah.
That's what's really happening. And to be honest, hemp we've dealt with challenges for years. I've been in this industry for 10 years as well. And we've dealt with all kinds of challenges, and we will continue to deal with challenges. And this is just another one. But to me, what hemp has done, and the beverage market is certainly demonstrating this, is we are adopting new consumers very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And to be honest, one of my big complaints about this industry is we've done a terrible job, to be honest, as an industry, of bubbling up outside our little cannabis subculture and all fighting for the same turf when there's all kinds of consumers around us that are willing to adopt. For our products, there are others that are using gummies to sleep, and that's valuable. But that's a tiny subset of the real opportunity in hemp, the beverage market. You know, when you go to Minnesota and you see a bunch of people walking into Total Wine and buying these beverages left and right, they are now full adopters of cannabis. To be honest, we're, you know, for us, it's in the license industry. We're looking at it saying, oh my God, this is a big problem. But at the same time, it's legalization of cannabis, and I think that we just need to figure out how to take advantage of it. That's how I look at it.
So my husband got started on the hemp drinks, and now he drives to a dispensary in New York to buy drinks because the supply chain. So
You heard it here.
yes.
We need these data points. People always ask, is that because we've been talking about this theory, but is
So
that
I was talking.
And it's tested.
Yes, I was talking to Anchor about this because, like, the question I think a lot of these MSOs have is like, what we were talking about this last night. What's the value of a retail chain going to be down the road if cannabinoid products expand into all of these distribution channels? And I think as consumers, we want them in all these channels. We want them to be safe and effective and age tested or gated when appropriate. I don't think all cannabinoids probably really need to be age gated. I'm guessing when you look at some of the data on the non-psychoactive stuff, it's therapeutic. So it's just such a broad plant with so many applications. But so for him, he's like, okay, well, what do I order? And I think the first beverage I ever ordered was like D8 seltzer. Like it was like, because I looked up like weed soda online. So I was like, all right, let's try this. And so we tried that. And then we kind of like went down this rabbit hole of hemp drinks. And he's like, but where can I buy them in New York? And I said, well, if you go to the dispensary, it's tested, it's New York sourced, it's a reputable brand, good flavor profile. And so yeah, now he went from never going into a dispensary in the 10 years I've been into the industry that now, like, you know, once a month he's stopping in and he's the beverage guy.
Yeah,
That is a great story, and I think it's an example of what's happening all over the place. Yeah,
and we see it. There's lots of states in the U.S. that have regulated alcohol in kind of unique ways, where there is hard alcohol has to be sold in a different place than maybe a low potency beer.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think about it to what you were saying, Cameron, about broadening the consumer base, that having broad access to cannabinoids can be an on-ramp into the adult use market for the consumers that never materialized, like your husband, before. Because if somebody has some low dose stuff and realizes that, oh, actually, I kind of liked the way that made me feel.
Uses it for sleep.
Maybe I want to try something else or learn about more products. So that's, I think it's exciting. Complicated, but exciting.
yeah.
Well, let's talk about strategy. You know, you guys all have a lot of stuff going on in the way that you're approaching the industry. And Ben and I, over the past month or so, have both been talking about the way that we have in our own companies and with our clients have been planning for next year. It's a good time to do that. If you wait till next year happens before you think about next year, you're way far behind. So I'm curious from a leadership perspective, which is kind of where I always like to start when I'm thinking about how businesses succeed, is starting with the humans. Like, how are you guys individually approaching leading your teams to think about next year?
Yeah. Everyone's looking at me, so I'll
Yeah,
yeah, because I have a plate that's so full, my team hates me. I drive them crazy because I see there are so many opportunities in this industry, and we sometimes forget about that. And I like to move the ball forward in a lot of different places. And I think one of the things I'm decent at is looking for opportunity and trying to take advantage of it. And so for us, we're moving the ball forward on multiple fronts. Number one, in the U.S., we have to be in more markets in the U.S. So we've got a couple more states that we're working to launch in. Again, we just launched here in Illinois, so we're excited about that. We have taken on vapes, so we're going to roll out our vape line as well. We just launched in California our new minis, which are an M&M, which are super exciting.
Everybody was raving about those the other night. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I ran out. So I didn't need today.
What's the dosing on?
They're 4 milligrams THC and they're up to 2 milligrams of a minor cannabinoid, depending on which one you have. Yeah, so we have one has THCV, CBG, and CBC. Yeah, and they melt in your mouth, not in your car. That's what I told them. It's great chocolate product. But so we're moving that forward. So we're moving new products forward. And then the global markets. I mean, that's been really high on my plate. We talked about Thailand earlier. We're able to export around the globe, so we're looking now for markets around the world to be able to sell our products.
You export from Thailand.
From Thailand, absolutely, yeah. And I think for us, I came in this industry because I'm a huge advocate of plant medicines. I've done all kinds of interesting stuff. Lived in the Amazon for 6 months, deep in the jungle. So I've done some interesting things in previous life. And so I really appreciate the wellness aspect of the plant. And I feel like with our global story, we can tell more of that wellness aspect. So we have signed a deal in Japan for CBD products, and so that out of Thailand. So we're already on that path. So we are new product categories, new markets in the U.S., and then new global markets. And
High complexity.
And yes, indeed. And that's why I just hired a VP of strategy to figure out how to get it all done.
Congrats.
Thank you. But I do think it's it's good to focus, and I will mention one of our competitors here, Wild. I appreciate their ability to stay very, very focused in what they do, and they've been highly successful at that. And we've watched that from afar, and it's they're a very tough competitor. But I think that our strategy is really to just build a global brand with really amazing products and enter into different markets. I will also say that we are also in the hemp market. We've been looking at that for 2 years. We entered the hemp market a while ago. We've been testing different parts of it. We do not do anything in hemp that we do in the licensed market, so there's no overlap.
Don't anger the MSOs.
Well, it's not just the MSOs. I would never compete with our customers.
Right.
Never. Like in California, we never.
Retail.
Yeah, retailers. Like, why would I do that? I don't even want to sell on my website, right? We've never really pushed sales through our website. I want to sell through my retail partners.
We've talked about that a lot with a lot of beverage companies.
Yeah.
Because it is direct competition, especially if you start doing pricing differentiation.
Yeah,
So
it's not
creating different SKU sets for the two venues.
Yeah, you have to be really smart about that. So we highly value our retail partners all over, everywhere. So it's important not to piss them off.
Yeah.
But I mean, how long do you think realistically the retail layer of the industry can continue to be kind of the gatekeeper for that endpoint of sale? Because you see in other retail categories, right? Obviously, with proliferation of e-commerce, there was always this concept that, or there was this fear that physical retail would become obsolete, but obviously it hasn't. And now you see exact dynamics where there are, businesses selling products online, direct to consumer, and also through third-party customers.
I have a data point that we can all talk about with that. Super interesting. And I was kind of shocked about it when it came to me. So we actually have a sales rep on the ground in Texas, running around selling into B2B stores.
CBD stores.
Yes, but they're selling everything, right?
Right.
And it's booming in Texas. And you've also got, just like Minnesota, you got breweries on draft selling D9 drinks. I mean, it's incredible.
What was it, 8 billion?
$6 to $8 billion retail market for hemp products.
Incredible.
Wild.
Yeah.
The biggest cannabis market in the
country.
country.
Yes. And one of the largest retailers there, I won't name who it is, we're in many of their stores, and they said to us, you know what? We know that, when our consumers comes in our store and they buy your product, many of them will go in and go find it online, and they'll buy it online. And we know that's just a natural course of business. We just want to make sure that we're not being undercut by too much, because sometimes they'll come in the store because they're driving by, and sometimes they'll buy online, whatever. But they do. It does seem like some of the retailers do understand that this is sort of normal course of business in CPG. But I do think the manufacturers and the brands have to be very smart about how they price it, because that ultimately you want to give consumers a choice, but we all need these retail outlets.
Totally.
Yeah.
So do you create not tax parity? I'm thinking about policy. Do price parity with what the retailers
We are very sensitive about how we price our stuff online and how we price it against in our retailers. Yeah, and we tell them that.
I think it's really smart, because I think a lot of brands get swept up in this idea of direct to consumer, because they look at a spreadsheet and they see that they get to capture the full retail margin or a much larger margin. But what's missed in that is the cost of acquisition of a customer to get them to your website. And there's so much more momentum and potential throughput at a retail store because that store is responsible for getting customers through that door. And yes, you're going to take a haircut because you're selling at wholesale instead of at retail price, but the ability to touch so many more customers in that environment is just.
If you're building a brand, you have to do it all.
Yeah.
You have to do it all.
To that point, though, I am shocked at how successful people are being with their subscription for products like this.
Yes.
It's like 30% of their online sales are subscription. And
Yeah.
that's just repeat customers and, just consistent revenue. It's crazy. And we're talking about 40 to 60% of revenue coming from direct to consumer for a lot of these brands.
Do you guys sign up for subscriptions like that on Amazon where it's like buy the shampoo next month again? I never do.
So I do, like, sounds like we all like to work out. So, so my protein powder gets shipped.
I was gonna say, like,
My
any
amino
supplements.
acids, it's my amino acids, my Elysium supplements.
Like,
That's all.
Because you know you're going to use them at a certain amount. Yeah, that makes
I
sense.
have one of those old man pill organizers, and it's just got like 20 pills in it every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. That and laundry detergent
Why don't you do it? Yeah.
I mean,
and paper towels.
it took me a while, but like once I broke the seal and I just started adding things to it, it's like, why not take the
Okay,
15% off?
good. I'm just checking.
All right, back to the show.
It
It was Prime Day this week.
Yeah.
You guys got the notifications while we're at the show.
I missed it.
Heather, I'm curious for you. How are you thinking about it, planning for next year?
So I don't, for me, I feel like it's no different, I guess, than for any entrepreneur. So we had our first fund close. We're pretty fully invested now. We're expecting to have a second fund close. Depending on how successful that is, that will determine how 2025 goes. And that's basically to stay focused on equity. And then the question will be, I think there's a lot of funds out there right now that are converting to the credit opportunity because it seems like that's an easier thing to raise for. I'm still more interested in putting equity into companies than levering them up right now. I think like a lot of this debt is problematic for companies, and you're seeing people are trying to work their way out of it, and they're working their way through the story of like, well, when 280E comes, then we'll be able to pay down our tax liability and our debt liability and maybe sort out our working capital problem. So it's like the debt thing, I think in certain circumstances, it can be a very valuable tool, and I get why some people are doing it. But I do feel like a lot of groups are taking debt that should be taking equity, and they don't want to take the equity because the valuations are so low. So it's just, so on the investing side, I guess it's like TBD. And then I'm very curious about how the market is developing, and I'm trying not to have a closed mind. And my thesis at the 2 years ago versus my thesis in a year is going to be different because policy is changing. I'm trying to remain actively involved in the policy discussions. So this year, I don't think I'm going to attend MJBiz. It's so overwhelming to me, but there's a policy day happening out there with Vicente is putting together. Are you going to that?
I don't know.
I'll send it to you. But so it's a bunch of policymakers that'll be in Vegas talking about policy at MJBiz. So I'm going to go that way. I can see some people, but just kind of stay focused on policy. And then with portfolio companies, really trying to do whatever we can to help them strategically. So not trying to have our hands in their business, but be there to help when they have questions or if we can make introductions. And so I think we've been at Speedwell like pretty good about connecting our portfolio companies with opportunities that have helped them accelerate the business. And I definitely want to stay focused on that.
I want to jump in. I want to actually double click a little bit in policy discussion and ask you about why policy matters so much to strategy in cannabis when you're writing checks into the space, and how different policies may or may not affect your willingness, interest, and kind of engagement in certain types, of companies. Like, what is it you're looking for to happen in policy?
I'm gonna this is probably terrible. So I feel like there's been a lot of enthusiasm in the space. Like we have these good catalysts and things are going to get better. And I don't know if we're at the beginning of a new 10-year cycle of like things being incrementally better, but still really, really hard. Mm-hmm. And if we don't get improvements in terms of support at the federal level, where they say, we are hands off if it is a state legal business, or if it's hemp or if it's cannabis, there will be no federal enforcement or rules. I think that helps grease the wheels with financial institutions to the extent that they may or may not be able to get policy through that helps making financial transactions easier. And I know everybody's tired of talking about it, but like if we don't get uplisting, I think then the hemp opportunity is going to run exceedingly fast, and cannabis is going to literally get left on the wayside.
I completely agree with you. And these hemp guys have capital, and they're trying to step into our side of the business.
Right, but then also like CPG can do hemp. So that the all of the issues that we're all trying to work our way through this regulatory quagmire, if hemp stays protected, and what I'm hearing is that it's likely exclusively beverage and low dose, and then the dispensary channel stays high dose. But none of that is done. The Farm Bill's not done. It's likely getting kicked. So that's going to delay any certainty, which means that the hemp market is going to continue to develop, and then it's going to be way harder to control. And then the question is, even if they do regulate it, what's the enforcement? Do people actually stop their activity? And the only way that's going to kind of settle out, I think, is if like the payment processors are saying to retailers or e-commerce sites, like, we will not handle your funds. Mm-hmm. And if that doesn't happen, then I don't see how the market closes. I don't see how this hemp market closes. So I think from a regulatory side, it's kind of like understanding where capital will flow, where value will flow, and where exits will be created. And so if cannabis gets locked on this island of no uplisting, no ability to transfer, no ability to be acquired, these quirky transactions where it's like, we have a call on your company when it's federally legal, that's a really, really difficult moment to capture if you're trying to raise money to get investors excited about an opportunity, because I have things I invested in 10 years ago that were supposed to be 3 to 5 years, and they're still sitting unharvested. So,
and then flip side of that, like, what if the right thing happens? Then what's?
Well, then I think it'll be so much fun.
There's money.
Exactly. Yeah, because then we're going to get called by like every fund manager out there that's like, hey, our clients, or any, wealth manager, all these people are gonna be like, hey, our clients are asking now about how do we get exposure to the space.
That's right.
And then there's going to be this amazing opportunity for all of us to work with, join, become like big financial institutions, regular way funds, have the benefit of fully robust capital markets. So if the regulation starts swinging in the right way, which I think hemp inadvertently is like pushing it that way, because now this normalization is happening so fast, and it's shifting the perception of like who is consuming, because all these states that couldn't pass medical are like the largest markets in the country. So I think it's interesting because it is actually converting, I think, from the illicit to the hemp market. And then I would like to see the hemp and the medical, or if we say hemp and cannabis, I would like them to just become one market. And I think I kiddingly said to you, and maybe I said it last time we talked, if they would just change the Farm Bill to be 30% THC, then cannabis would just be hemp and everything would be done. Like,
strategy. I've heard 1%.
That's amazing.
right. But why not just like, I mean, it's a difference without a distinction. Like, just literally start, like, if you can't get it through this other path, like, just use the tool that you have in hand and then regulate. So that's Farmgate, and then regulate the consumer products, which I think is what Wyden is trying to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think your comments are incredibly insightful. I totally agree with everything you just said.
Oh.
And it's so interesting to me, which is rare, by the way.
Oh.
Not you. That was I tend to be very
We got smart people in the room, right? That was the idea.
But when I look at the markets 3 years ago, you had, like I said before, you had the illicit market, you have the licensed market, you got the hemp market. And what's so interesting is that the consumers would not cross over into the other markets. The illicit market guys would always just shop that. They were going to buy that product. The hemp guys would only buy the hemp product, and the license would only buy the license. But now you start to see the crossover, and you mentioned it. The illicit folks are actually walking into the hemp stores or CBD stores and buying hemp products. That's starting to happen now. And like your husband, right? He's crossing into the license. So these markets are merging together. That's what's great about this industry. It's just really frothy and complicated. But I think that
Yeah.
These are exciting times. I do feel like, things are changing, and it's gonna be good for all of us as long as we can figure out how to navigate it.
Yeah.
And
I hope so.
stop fighting.
Yeah.
And then I want to come back to you. You were saying about the portfolio support, which I interrupted, and then
Oh, no.
and then we'll talk to Michael about what he wants to do in 25. So
No.
yeah.
So I mean, hopefully I have a ton of money and I'm investing, but that's not so. I don't know that that's going to happen realistically. So always talking to our portfolio companies. That's what's great about being here is you're sitting at the bar in the hotel, and all of a sudden you're like, wait, I want you to meet this person, and you can give the quick intro. They see each other, and then things start happening. So I really do like the in-person meetings here. And I was talking to Elliot, and he said that I think Benzinga is going to drop down to one event a year now in Florida. They're not going to keep doing two, which I was bummed about because I actually really like this event.
I like Chicago better than Florida. 'Cause
Yeah.
It's in the middle.
I agree with that.
I think it brings more of the whole
Yeah.
thing
It
together.
does.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel there was like a different vibe between the two shows. Miami has a different vibe than Chicago.
Yeah.
So-
Miami's a fun vibe.
They said there's a lot more people there too, which I didn't realize. I feel like this is
Feel
very
that.
big.
No, it didn't feel
Oh,
that.
that
That's
is
interesting.
massive,
Yeah.
which is really spread out.
Yeah.
I feel like this week was really busy.
Yeah, it was.
It was packed.
I was devastatingly busy. It
Yeah.
was just too many meetings. And then the app didn't convert to my calendar. And I can't do two things at once. So it's like, if it doesn't go into my calendar, it's not happening. So I think I missed 100 meetings.
It took me 3 hours just to go through the list of all the people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a lot. It was a lot.
Can you please develop some AI tools? To-
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not our special.
I do want to hear about I'm excited to hear about
Yeah.
because retailers need to save money. So anything you can do to make the retailers more efficient is
Yeah.
super valuable to all of
No,
us.
no, for sure. And I think actually to take a big step back, what's been pretty cool about what we're building is that we've stayed very on course with our larger vision since day one, which is, effectively how do we create the intelligent data layer across the entire cannabis supply chain to, in a future state, ensure that the plants being planted in the ground are ultimately based on the true consumer demand signals from the point of sale, right? That's where we're going. I think what's been cool. So with all that being said, I'm not thinking too much about 2025 yet, just because we're at the beginning of Q4, and frankly, we have the most momentum we've ever had. So it's a matter of taking these new signals to just execute on now what is very clear to us is the highest priority over the next 90 days. And then the benefit of being an early stage company is that our ability to switch directions or at least readjust more quickly than a large organization is part of the strength, right? But with all that being said, coming back to your question, and actually, you may not even be privy to the relationship that we're starting to establish with Sunderstorm between one of our retail customers and Sunderstorm. But what's really cool is what we're finding, which has been fascinating. That, as mentioned, we build a platform that helps dispensaries reduce excess inventory and miss sales. What we're finding is the actual supply side of the industry has a larger sense of urgency to solve this problem for retailers than
Absolutely.
the retailers themselves, right? And the beauty of that is that we have built the infrastructure to be able to connect retail and warehouse data, frankly, across a variety of different tech stacks, variety of different markets. So we're starting to see our retail customers calling up their top vendors saying, you need to connect your data into Prelude's platform so that they're not only ordering based on an ideal supply side scenario, but based on what's actually available. And then that unlocks a lot of just streamlined capabilities from a workflow standpoint on both sides. So that's the path that we're running down pretty quickly.
Aren't we opening 10 below next year?
That's right. But that we'll save that for another conversation. Heather last night was saying someone needs to open the TJ Maxx of cannabis to figure out
To liquidate all the inventory.
Those stores exist in California.
They do.
They do. There's definitely discount stores.
Yes.
Well, so much inventory needs to get moved out.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, that's a whole other opportunity, and as you're probably noticing, I'm trying very hard
Not to look
not
at
to get distracted. It's like the ongoing challenge of what are the new signals that we pay attention to and adapt to, and what are shiny objects that we may want to tackle those problems ASAP, but ASAP it has to be after what's like right in front of us.
Well, Michael, one of the things as I've gotten to know you over the past couple of years that I've always thought was really compelling about managing inventory better at the retail store level is that ultimately it reduces the cost of inventory that retailers need to carry if they have better insight into the inventory that they need. And what we're all talking about is the capital constraints. And there's all these new markets coming on, and as new dispensaries are opening, it's harder and harder for them to get capital. The supply in those markets is constrained. So sometimes people don't get terms on the products that they're trying to open their stores with, or whatever the case is. So overbuying inventory is ultimately a huge problem, because it means that people need more money to put into their company that has high cost of capital, all these things.
For sure. I mean, not to get too,
so it's all interconnected in a pretty unique way, I think.
Yeah, not to get too existential or philosophical about it, but I fundamentally believe that like the biggest operating challenge preventing the industry from reaching it, policy aside, preventing the industry from reaching its true unbounded potential is ensuring that the right products in the right quantities end up in the right stores at the right time. And like, that's a very straightforward statement, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's easy, right? And
But we were talking about this on Monday, and I think it's interesting. If you look at the dispensaries, all this power sits with the buyer, and the buyer's buying, and they were making decisions based on like what they liked, what their relationships were, who they knew. And now with like what you're doing and with what some other companies are doing, people actually, you could convert that buying decision to being like completely data driven, which is like in our zip code, what products are selling at what price points. Okay, what vendors are in that category. And you could, I think, probably use AI to just be like, here's your order for this is going to be your highest velocity sales, and this is what your percentage on shelf should be. And that buyer, which right now has, if you look at the way we're doing things now, it's terribly inefficient, and it's locked up at least $1 billion in working capital that's sitting stagnant on people's balance sheets.
Yep.
So there's like a huge unlock with data that is just waiting for people to be able to understand how to act upon it.
100%. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just going to throw this out. My estimate has been for years been, if we could actually make sure that our products were on the shelf in every store, that every one of our customers, forget the ones that don't want to carry us, just our current customers, and they just kept it supplied.
Didn't go out of stock.
Didn't go out of stock. I think our business would be 25%. We'd have a 25% increase.
I think you may have synced up with the guys at Keefe or something over the show, because I was talking to Eric, and he was saying that this opportunity could be as high as 40% in their high velocity stores, because there's so many times where he walks in and the shelves are just empty and they never even made a call.
Endlessly an issue. But sorry.
No, I was just going to say, it's funny you say that 25%, because based on kind of the first pilot of, syncing retailer and vendor data together, we've seen an uplift in about 20 to 25% from, first order to second. I mean, this big brand, right, in California. So, not every brand is going to have the luxury of on shelf equating, more revenue. But for, brands like Kana, that statement seems very reasonable. Where, to your point, it has brand recognition, and the enemy is stocking out. The, early data point we have is spot on.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to see these tools come into play, because I think they're so crucial for our industry. If you look at how CPG operates, the stores, set up, the buyers set up their planograms for the year, and then they just put it back on the distributors to just keep the shelves full. The stores are just a conduit to the consumer, and the vendor, the vendor managed inventory, VMI, just automatically replenishes whatever the product needs to be on the shelf. And if it doesn't sell, then they just replace it with a different brand, right, or different product. And that needs to happen in this industry. And there are a number of brands, ourselves included, that are building VMI as well, so that using tools like yours or whatever, to be able to make sure that the shelves stay full. There are other problems, AR and other things that pose challenges to this. But the more that we can use technology to be able to do this integration and have the free flow of product at the right pace, it'll be incredibly valuable for them.
For sure. And then just to come back, to a point that Heather made, like at the end of the day, I was trained as a retail buyer in a sneaker company, first job out of college. And I remember like literally day one, my mentor saying, buying is part science, right? Like what we're focused on at the end of the day, we're excellent at the science part. But what that ultimately allows purchasing and procurement teams to do is more heavily invest in the art, right? And that is, crafting the assortment, what is actually merchandising the store, how does that drive sales? So I think it's very important to emphasize that, platforms are meant to continue to have that engagement from teams, but that engagement just is going to shift to, the art of the.
But I feel like it's so disparate by market, how people can merchandise, because it's really difficult to tell like what's driving a sale in a store. Is it the budtender's recommendation behind the counter? Is it the placement near the register? Some markets there's no product to interact with, so you're limited to like an iPad screen and a menu. So this is another thing that's interesting too about hemp. When you walk into convenience stores or these other stores, it's easier to interact with some of the products. So you can take your time, look at a product, figure out what you want. And the rules of retail are not even equal amongst.
It's a much better shopping experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we do have it on the licensed side of the business. They're
It's just not everywhere, but
It's
like
just
there's
not
some stores that are awesome and you can do that. And then
100%.
some you're.
No, it blows my mind. You walk into these stores and like, the menu's over there. Go to the screen and pick what you want, right? And there's no product anywhere on the shelves. Like it's a terrible shopping experience.
And that's the rules of play in many of the markets, but there's ways that brands can be, or retail stores can be getting around this. I mean, I tell retail stores that if you're not allowed to display real product, every time you place a wholesale order, ask for some empty boxes, ask for some empty jars so that you can just put it on the shelf.
Put lots of information out.
Whatever it is. So it feels like a shopping experience, even if it's not.
Yeah, create a comfortable shopping experience so that you're not being yelled at by someone behind the counter as soon as you walk in the store. Hey, what do you want? Right? That doesn't work.
The fragmentation of the rules around hemp, though, is creating some barriers for this. I know Tennessee just passed some rules about putting the products behind the counter, behind glass. And so you just completely lose that interaction, and signals like that immediately cause pause with distributors and retailers on the whole product line.
But I still think you can create a nice shopping experience, even if the product itself is behind the walls.
Big little partnership though with the retailer.
Yeah.
Michael, I'm curious, as we're touching on hemp, and you've been building specifically in the regulated market, with APIs into track and trace programs and working within that space. From a technology perspective, watching what's happening in hemp, do you think about that's a place that you should be learning about retail data also, and thinking about serving that space?
The short of it is absolutely, like, at the end of the day, we built a supply chain optimization platform that optimizes supply based on demand. That obviously is necessary. Every node of the cannabis supply chain, or frankly any supply chain. So if we're focused on building a big business, which we are, that obviously transitions into in the long term moving into other markets.
When we first met, remember, I was like, why are you doing cannabis? I was like, start another market.
No, I get that question a lot.
Because he has no confidence.
No, but part of it is, again, coming back to the opportunity. Everyone's in
Like sports
for different reasons. Coming back to a comment that I made before, there's just kind of a natural policy mode around the industry because it's federally illegal, right? Even to this day, you see big tech staying out of the industry to a certain degree. And like as an early stage startup that has so many different things that could potentially derail your business, not having to worry about this new behemoth coming in and eating your lunch today is nice to not worry about. And you're competing against, ultimately other startups within the space, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then again, coming back to the investor, right? My past company, we were able to go talk to, do the Sand Hill Road tour up and down, Silicon Valley, talk to every investor. Immediately, reaching out to past networks, like, oh, cannabis can't do that, vice versa. So there's there's limited capital, which again just levels the playing field in terms of competition standpoint, and we're going to continue to bet on ourselves. So. Again, just look at the market dynamics. That's why cannabis. And then there's also an inherent complexity in the fragmentation of the supply chain, and let's call it the disparate nature and inconsistent nature of cannabis data that we've now invested years and millions of dollars to solve, which has made what we built really robust and defensible. But then when we're ready to start pulling in additional data sources from other segments, potentially hemp, a lot of the hard problems, it's not going to be copy and paste, but a lot of the hard infrastructure problems already can solve, which.
One of the things for me as an investor right now that is making everything so tricky is no one's paying their bills. So it's like vendors, like lawyers, accountants are telling me that they're not getting paid. And then you see it at the dispensary level. And so then when you start looking at the vendors, people are pushing terms as long as they can. So it's like, to your point, there's not a lot of capital, and that's complicating things further as an investor, because you're like, okay, your forecast is this, but there's probably, I don't know, 20 to 40% of that that's going to remain uncollected for longer than 90 days. And so your actual cash needs are double what you're telling me that they are. And it's like, I think that this like non-payment in that industry is really hard right now.
For sure. And I mean, what we're talking to, on the vendor side, as we're deepening our relationships with vendors, like they're saying, yeah, great. Getting better orders from our dispensaries is absolutely necessary and needed, but that's half the battle.
They have to pay.
Right? The payment is the other side. I'll just, not to get ahead of myself, this is something that's very high priority for us in the next 90 days. How do we establish the right relationships that, effectively address all those pain points in the ecosystem to have the right orders being generated that are then also returning the cash to both dispensary, but equally as importantly, the vendor, because that has a huge knock-on effect of the entire supply chain, if not to your point.
Yeah.
Can we zoom out just a little bit? Because I think as we look at 2025, and I want to do my planning, we talk about AI a lot. Like, what other tools are you seeing out there that are coming online that the industry can look forward to? Like, or whether there are opportunities for AI to start working into our workflows?
I mean, obviously, data analysis is a big one. I think increasingly, like the hype around AI that is often misconstrued is all centered around generative AI, open AI, effectively large language models. That's a bucket of AI. That's where all the hype started. I think what you're seeing is applications for people trying to use these large language models, the chat GPTs or similar, to just enhance customer experience within their products, asking questions rather than having to dig through data. I think that's a fact that is occurring. I don't know how viable that'll be or how impactful that'll be in terms of actually impacting operations, but I think they're not only in cannabis, but in other industries. That's like the lane that a lot of people are exploring.
I can talk to that too.
Oh.
So I have a software development background in a previous life. So
We should talk more.
yeah,
Is
no,
that why you were living in the rainforest?
that was later. So I went from being behind the computer to being sitting in the middle of the jungle.
One with the other.
But we actually are very keen on systems and software and process in Sunderstorm. And a lot of it has to do with my background, understanding software and technology and all of that. I'm a bit of a geek when it comes to that. So what we've actually done is we have a very sophisticated implementation of our ERP. It took us 4 stabs to actually find the right ERP and implement it over the course of probably 5 years. But now the current ERP has been running for about 3 years, and it's amazing, right? So we know our cost structure on every single bag of gummies that goes. Every step of the process of manufacturing, all the way through distribution on the shelf.
Can I ask what you ended up with?
We use Acumatica.
Okay.
Yeah, but we've completely customized it. So I have a whole systems team that we do some of our own software development, but we also outsource a lot of it. So we have a full understanding of our cost structure, so we can twist the knobs and dial things back wherever we need to. But we also have all kinds of other data in the company, right? We have visit to stores, photographs of when the field marketing team goes out and checks the displays, all kinds of some retail data that we get access to. We just suck everything into an AWS server, in AWS, and then we just unleash AI on top of it to be able to probe and try to find interesting kind of combinations of information to help us get a better understanding of what's going on in the market. So we literally have hundreds of millions of records of all kinds of information that we're using AI to probe deeply to understand consumer behavior and what's going on with our products and how they're selling. And if we do a bud tender pop-up event or whatever in these 5 stores, what kind of impact do we see on sales, that kind of thing. So I really do think that these tools can be incredibly valuable for brands as they understand their markets.
Not to get too geeky, but having a well-functioning ERP system is next to heaven, ladies.
Big deal. Yeah.
We built ours on Odoo. And,
Oh, yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, no, it's been a lifesaver. I mean, we when we first launched our MSO strategy, we launched in 3 states at the same time. And the only way that we could actually do that was because we had the ERP system. We just plugged it into all the states. It was a nightmare, I will admit, launching in all these states, but it's very easy for us to just plug it in. And when we just launched in Thailand, we just plugged it in over there, and the sales reps putting their information in, productions putting their information in, procurements putting their information in. And it's just much easier to scale the business that way.
Awesome. Well, this has been such a fun first ever CEO roundtable. We thank you guys so much for being here. I know we could talk all day, and there's so much we didn't get to talk about that I wish we could. So we'll keep doing it. On our show, we do a last call often, and I think today I'll do the last call, which is that as everybody's looking at 2025, I just think that it's key, and I heard from all of you, is just to keep focusing on what winning is for you, for your company, for your team, for the industry, and be walking towards those wins. And while we walk towards those wins, also not being in denial about the challenges and the things that are ahead, the stuff that are the pain points in our businesses, the pain points in the regulations. I think that there's sort of a coming together between getting out of denial and creating opportunities to win as we move forward. So that's what's going to be my last call for today. And Ben, if you want to read us out, we'll take it from there.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thank you to everyone that attended Benzinga. Patrick, Elliot, great show. Javier. Want to send out our thoughts and prayers to those in Florida that are experiencing the storm right now. I hear there's maybe even another one coming after that. So just a rough period in the southeast there. So thoughts out to you guys. Thank you for watching, liking, subscribing, sharing with your friends. Thank you to our teams, Vertosa and Meyer. Until next time, folks, stay curious, stay informed, and keep your spirits high. See you next time.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any content.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I'd love to talk more. I should have come more prepared, knowing that you're